All guests appear via the Boardwalk Honda hotline. Jason Avant, a former Eagle wide receiver. During the Andy Reid era, he then moved on to Carolina, followed by time in Kansas City, where he played for Andy Reid. And Doug Peterson was the offensive coordinator there at the time. He joined us on Radio Row last week and said about how aggressive of a play caller Peterson was and what kind of play designer he was. And, Jason, I guess we got a taste on Super Bowl Sunday of exactly what you were talking about, man. How are you?
Oh, it was awesome. I'm doing well in yourself. But it was awesome. They came out and made up their mind that, look, we're going to win the game. We're not going to wait for the Patriots to lose the game for us. We're going to go out and be as aggressive as we can, and they did that. And that's what you have to do in order to beat a great team. They're the great teams, the Patriots, the team of the last 2 decades they are, and they know how to win ball games. So you have to go out and beat them, and that's what Coach Peterson dialed up that day. He dialed it up for the city of Philadelphia. And what can you say about that? But it was an excellent call game. The only thing that you could ever say about that game that could have been questionable was going for 2 on that first extra point. But other than that, that was a perfect game call.
Yeah. How surprised? Okay, so you're watching the game like all of us. How surprised were you that they decided to go for it on 4th and 1, and not only go for it, but call the play that they ended up choosing?
I thought they would go for it, and I thought they should have gone for it on that 4th down. Now the trick play is that was a gutsy call. So
what's it like, Jay, inside a huddle when a trick play gets called? Because I got to assume when that play gets called, you guys all kind of pause and look at each other like, really? Did they really just call this play? Or is it just business as usual? Let's run this thing.
No, a majority of the time, every player is shocked and they're excited. You know why they're excited? Because a trick play you have in your game plan for about 8 weeks before you call it. So it's one of those plays that you practice it every day for 8 weeks, and the coach never calls it. So you're like, finally, we're going to run a play that we've been practicing for so long. So I'm pretty sure when they called the play, everyone's like, oh, okay, it's time for it, So I'm pretty sure it actually motivated the team to execute the play.
Now, have you seen the video of Foles essentially going over and saying, hey, let's run Philly, and Peterson looks at him like, all right, let's do it. I mean, it was kind of like, let's do it. If you're confident in it, I'm confident in it. And I guess in Doug, that's what makes him what has become such a great coach is he takes the players' input.
Well, that's what he does. And that's the advantage that you have as a head coach when you play the game. It's very, very hard to communicate to coaches sometimes when they haven't played the game. When you've played the game, he understands that. First of all, it's the player that's requesting something from you. Okay, so it's Nick. He's in the game. He's in the moment. He has a sense of what's working and what's not working. So he's going to have a better understanding of what play should be called and what play shouldn't be called. So I'm glad to see that Coach Peterson taking his advice from a firsthand experience. I'm pretty sure there was a time in his career where he suggested a play and was blown off. And he said, when I become a head coach, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to take some pointers from a player that I can trust. I'm not saying that you go out and trust any player because some players don't have the heartbeat of the game like the quarterback does, but the quarterback is definitely the person that you should listen to in that moment.
Former Eagles wide receiver Jason Avant is with us. He played for Doug Peterson in Kansas City. How about the other 4th down play call on your own 45? Now, Frank Reich said after the game, if they don't get that, they know game over. So that play there really is an underrated play call in this game that they end up making the decision to go for it on their own 45, but also getting it.
Oh, yeah. Well, just think about this. Hold on. I think whether you get it or not, you have to show that aggressive nature. You've done it all year, and in the Super Bowl, don't depart from what got you there. If you've been aggressive all year and you've been known throughout the league to be aggressive, and you've shown the confidence in your team game after game, and that's been your legacy you should continue to do what got you to the dance, okay? Stick with the girl that brought you to the dance, okay? So I really enjoyed that part, but the other thing that I enjoyed about it was the person that they threw it to. You got to throw it. Those moments show you who the players, who the coaches trust the most. You trust Zach Ertz down on the goal line for the game. You trust him on fourth down, and that's the guy that I'm going to trust because I know personally that Zach Ertz stays after practice to catch 50 or 100 at the end of every practice. So those are the things that you really enjoy, that you see the back end of, the moment. But also you got Brady on the other side. Like, you got to beat him. You can't just allow the defense to just sit out there and get torn apart. Go out there and win the game as offense.
Jason, you've played for Doug in 2 stops now. I mean, we're looking at this guy right before our eyes at this big stage in the Super Bowl, not only really outcoach Belichick, but be as brash as he was to go for it on 4th and goal, on 4th down, and just be confident in the guys that he has in that locker room. Was Doug always preparing for this moment to be a head coach and to be this type of head coach? Did you see that going back before?
Yeah, it's like, in the Coach Reid, coaching family, the guys that start off as offensive quality control, the guys that start off as quarterbacks coach and later on to be offensive coordinators, that they're going to be a head coach. So now you're trying to figure out what's going to make them different, what's going to be different from Coach Reid. And the thing that makes Doug different and the things that make him special and that you can see that he was going to be special is, first of all, he's as humble of a coach as you can get, right? So when you're humble, you're pliable, you're able to receive information not only from, Coach Reid and other coaches, but from your players. You're always going to prepare the right way because you're going to respect your opponent. You're always, and the other thing about Doug, he's a thinker. He's always trying to figure out where can I get to where can I put a player in a situation that will make our team thrive. So he's always putting people. I'll give you an example. Nelson Aguilar. Nelson Aguilar has been maligned since he's been in this city. He said, okay, Nelson Aguilar has great talent. Let me move him in the inside where he doesn't have to compete against the best talent in NFL. He can compete against 3rd and 4th and 5th rounders. And he takes off this season. So he's always trying to put people in position to win and to make the team better. And that's what we saw in him. And he's a thinker. He's devising up plays and schemes in order to beat you. And look, he did that versus one of the best coaches, not one of the best coaches, the best coach in NFL history this time. So to put this team in that game and win the Super Bowl is a story of all stories for Philadelphia, history. It's that team on a piece of paper at the beginning of the year. No one would have said they were going to be in the Super Bowl with Carson Wentz. You take away Carson Wentz, you take away Sproles, you take away Jason Peters, you take away Jordan Hicks, and this team still wins the Super Bowl. It's the greatest story in Philadelphia sports history, and he deserves a lot of credit for it.
Jason, you just talked about it with Nelson Aguilar having a big season after his struggles last season. How hard is it? Because you were a receiver in this league for a long time. For guys like Alshon Jeffrey, who was number 1 in Chicago. For Zach Ertz, who a lot of people say he never really, was there at the beginning of the season. He always tailed off. And for a guy like Torrey Smith, who came from a Super Bowl culture in Baltimore, to all get together and say, listen, we're going to take less to gain more.
Man, that's what this team is about. Like they've had a bunch of guys that were, they said, Zach Ertz, never was able to block, and he's never complete tight end or this and that. And like you said, everyone has a story, and all of them have this chip on their shoulder because when you look at their roster, you don't see a bunch of Hall of Famers or talented. When I say talent, they are talented, but you don't see, Pro Bowl talent type of players on their roster. But and that puts a chip on your shoulder, and they created this underdog mentality because they got tired of hearing all those stories, what they can't do and why the team needs to go out and get another receiver because Corey isn't playing well, or Nelson Aguilar may not be able to catch the ball in the slot, or Zach won't ever be able to block a defensive end, or on and on and on and on. And they took all of that negative energy and all of the criticism and channeled it into a tighter brotherhood, a tighter bond with the coaches and buying in and doing everything that they could do in order to win a game. And that's what you see in this team. This team found ways to win, and they're champions because of that. Going into this Super Bowl game, if you were to talk to any sportscaster or any personality, TV personality, if you said that Tom Brady would throw for 500 yards and the defense would give up 33 points, there's no way we're winning this game. But this team was different because they found ways to win. In an Atlanta game, the offense needed the defense in order to win the game, 10-15. In this game, the defense needed the offense in order to win the game, and they pulled together and found a way to win the game with great play calling, with guys stepping up and making plays, and they end up getting it done. At the last moment of the game, the guy from Michigan, 55 jersey, comes up and gets his hand on the ball, which changes the game. And, I'm just so proud of this team. I sat there after the game when the clock hit 0 and cried for about 10 minutes, uncontrollably, just crying just because of the type of players that they have on this team and because how hard they worked and, what this team and what this title means to the city of Philadelphia. Just hats off to all of those guys.
Jason Avant, former Eagles wide receiver. I want to ask you a tough question because you were there in 2006, and McNabb gets hurt. Garcia comes in and essentially saves that season. He became the most popular guy in town for the year. The very next year, they make the decision to let Jeff go, and, they had A.J. as the backup, and he had been there, and Donovan was coming back. But I always said they couldn't bring Garcia back because if McNabb got off to a slow start, it would be anarchy of people wanting Garcia to take that job. Do you see a similar situation potentially happening here with Foles? I mean, this guy can walk on water now here, and yet Wentz is essentially, he's the quarterback. We all know that, but do you see that there could be a possible weird scenario on the horizon? I mean, was it like that when Garcia was there? Did you sense my God, these people kind of like Garcia more than they like Donovan?
Well, listen, I definitely understand that. So, yes, in that time that there was the fans made it that way, but also there was guys in the locker room that was so mad that Jeff was going, just because he meant so much to the team off the field and also for the leadership that he had. That's the thing that Jeff had. He was a tremendous leader. I'm talking about a dog curse you and he was right and this the way we were going to do it leader. It was unquestionable, so it was a lot easier to get in line under Jeff. But it was one of those things that, and for this situation with Nick and Carson, I think that there is no other thing that you can do if you're Howie but to allow. If it were me, I would get together with Nick in gratitude and appreciation, and ask him which sets of 3 or 4 teams do you want to go to. And we'll try to make a deal with these 3 or 4 teams to put you in the best situation because we're appreciative of what you did for this city, and try to get him out of this town and get him the best payday possible. Just because you don't want that, because we know that Carson is the quarterback for this team. And even though Nick and Carson can survive together because they have the greatest personalities and character men that you can possibly have, but the city itself won't be able to handle it. The media in the city won't be able to handle it, which will create tension in the locker room at some point when things don't go right. And you don't want your quarterback to always feel pressure and the legend of Nick Foles in his locker room, or not in his locker room, but in his quarterback room at all times. So I think that the best thing to do for Nick and for the city of Philadelphia and for your team is to get Nick in a room and say, look, we're going to trade you to the team of your choice because of what you did for this city, and we'll try our best to put you in the best situation possible. And thank you so very much for what you did.
Wow, unbelievable. And, it's funny. somebody in the office here said they went and bought a hat, and on the side of the hat it has Super Bowl champions, but there's an autographed name. On the one hat it says Nick Foles, number 9. The other one says Carson Wentz. He said the table with the Carson Wentz hats was full. The Foles hats were all gone.
All gone, yeah.
All gone because, but you're right. I mean, I'm sure there was probably people in your locker room that were saying, man, we really think Jeff is the right guy. And other people saying, well, Donovan's the guy. I mean, I'd hate to see.
It's always going to be split.
Yep.
You know, it's always going to be split. So, to get out of that situation, I think that you got to do right by him. I just don't send him to,
Cleveland.
Don't do him like that. You know, show some homage to the guy, and because what he did, in going 12 for 14 on third down,
crazy.
Man, throwing for 300-plus yards, 3 touchdowns, and catching 1 touchdown. And the truth of the matter is he didn't put the ball in harm's way. He gave guys shots. He didn't really put the ball in harm's way. So he got hot at the right time, and he's shown that he can be a bona fide starter in this league. So you got to give him that right too, and give him and his family a chance to make his payday.
He caught 297 balls here in Philadelphia. One of the more reliable guys in the time that he played here. Jason Avant, kind enough to join us to give us great insight on the Eagles and Doug Peterson. Jason, great stuff, man. We'll catch up with you soon, pal.
Thanks, Jason.
All right. Shout out to the offensive line and Howie Roseman.